Have you ever noticed how some images are easy to view and everything seems to have its place? And that these images have a good sense of depth or perspective? Have you seen a great photograph and then tried photographing a similar subject, but somehow your image feels confusing or messy? Often this is due to something we call composition. So what is composition and why have it? Simply put, composition is how and where we place elements in our photos to tell a story. Composition works by creating order from the elements we want to photograph. In this tutorial, we are going to explain a range of techniques that will help you take photographs with better composition. Once you've mastered composition, you'll be able to direct the viewer's attention to elements in the image, create depth, and place emphasis on your subject. All of these things combine so your photographs are interesting to yourself and to others as well. You may think taking control of your composition sounds daunting, so let's have a closer look at some of the compositional tools you can use. Framing, format, viewpoint, horizon, the rule of thirds, triangles, and lines. Let's start by organizing a chaotic composition using framing. Framing is all about asking yourself, what exactly am I photographing? What do I see in my viewfinder? Take a look at these two examples side by side. What do you notice? In our first shot, we have simply pointed the camera and shot the photograph. We haven't thought about what's in the frame or where elements are located in the frame. And the result? A pole appearing out of the subject's head, a busy background, a distracting foreground element, and a crooked horizon. Now look at our second shot. We simply moved our own position and directed our subject to move a little in the opposite direction. And the result? The pole is moved and is no longer sticking out of the subject's head. The foreground element has been cropped, the background is a lot cleaner, and the horizon is straight. Even how you format the frame can affect the image. Take a look at these two examples, where we simply changed the framing from horizontal to vertical. Notice how different the perspective is when you change the format. What if you were to change your viewpoint? Take a moment to shift from your normal eye level framing and see what happens. Look up, down, or at eye level on your subject. These all have an effect on how your subject looks in your photograph. And don't forget your horizon line. Be careful of putting your horizon right in the middle of the frame. Central horizons can appear quite static, where the two halves of the image compete with each other for the viewer's attention. Create more emphasis on the foreground by placing the horizon in the top third of the frame, or in the bottom third of the frame to create a sense of space within the image. Notice how simple little changes all affect the overall look and feel of the image. Let's dive back into the toolbox and pull out a few rules that you can use to help create a stronger image. The rule of thirds. This rule simply tells us not to position our subject in the middle of the frame. By dividing the frame into 3 equal vertical and horizontal segments, the intersections of those lines are said to be strong points, which are great places for important compositional elements. Even if you can't position your subject on an intersection, anywhere on the lines will definitely help in making a better image. Most of our DSLR cameras display these lines on the viewfinder or on the display on the back of the camera, so try using them as a guide for your composition. Triangles. These are another great compositional tool. If we want to reinforce the relationship between the elements, try placing them within a triangle. The shape and direction of these triangles can vary depending on the scene you're photographing. Lines. With the careful placement of lines within our image, we can draw the viewer in and lead them through the image. Lines are also great at creating a sense of depth within an image. There are different types of line we can use to do this: leading lines and converging lines. Sometimes the line can be implied through the use of elements that appear to connect through the image. And finally, natural framing. You can use many things to frame your subject. In this image, we direct the viewer to the main element by framing the image with posts, shadows, and hanging sails. Let's have a quick recap of the things we've learned in this tutorial. What is composition? Using composition to create great photos. Framing and focus. The rule of thirds. and leading lines. Now that you're familiar with composition, make sure you check out the other tutorials in the series and see how else you can take creative control of your camera.